putting your best foot forward and showing your clients that you are going to give them more in value than you receive in payment. That's from the Go Giver book, by the way. But that is so important, and that needs to be your goal, is that you're giving people more than what you're receiving, and that they feel like that at the end of the transaction, that they got more than they could ever pay you.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today's guest has nearly 20 years of corporate experience before jumping into real estate. She has a passion for decorating and great coffee, two characteristics that many great real estate agents have. She has a degree in marketing and purchased her first home at the age of 21. She recently became a member of the Coldwell Banker Vanguard Elite Representative Network. We'll learn about that. Let's welcome this consistent top performer from the Fleming Island Coldwell Banker Vanguard office, Danielle Wolbert, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you coming by. I want to tell me a little bit about this Elite Network. It's something recently, right at the end of August, I think you were brought in. What's that all about?
So the Elite Realtor Network is Coldwell Banker's designation for agents that have sold enough production to make it into the top 10% of the MLS.
So it's the MLS overall, not just Coldwell Banker, but top
Correct.
10% in the region here. Well, NEFAR, which is, what do they call their MLS?
Northeast Florida. Real MLS.
Real
Yes.
MLS. That's right. Excellent. I do want to do this first as well because I forgot on my last show. One of my sponsors here, Remy Graphics, do these nice mugs for me here, and I'm going to take that graphic off and I'm going to put this one up so you get it. Remy Graphics. They'll actually do one-offs. I think Remy is a real estate agent herself. Not Remy. Dunya Taylor is the Remy Graphics with Remy Realty, but they will do one-offs for you. So if you have a customer and you just want to personalize maybe a couple mugs for the two of them, boom, she'll do that. You don't have to order a dozen. This one is actually yours because it's the last one until I get my new shipment. So I'm going to put this in this nice protective case here and with your gift bag there. And that one is yours.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you for coming. So RemyGraphics.com, check it out. They do have other laser engraved gifts to support your needs. So appreciate that. As I always kick off the show, if I was reading your bio, your LinkedIn, which actually you have a decent LinkedIn where a lot of people do not, or it's not updated, but yours actually tells a little bit of a story about you. You're from Maryland.
Yes.
All right. Tell us about growing up in Maryland and how did you get to Jax?
So my dad and my mom's whole family is from the D.C., Baltimore area. So we lived in Annapolis. I was born in Annapolis, Maryland, not the Naval Academy. That's always everybody's first question was your dad military?
Yeah.
No, he wasn't. That just so happened to be where he worked at the time. And then shortly thereafter, we moved to the Baltimore area and started kindergarten there. And then my dad got a job transfer to Jacksonville, which is how we ended up here and started first grade in Argyle.
So you really grew up in Jacksonville then?
Yeah. I don't remember too much of Maryland. I remember a little bit of snow, and then we moved to Florida, first grade.
Yeah.
So
I know the area. Well, my aunt, she taught for over 30 years in Fairfax County.
Okay.
And then I lived in Centerville for most of the 90s. So we were doing business all the way up north of Baltimore, down through, Richmond, south there. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
My dad lived in Fairfax County growing up.
Oh, okay. All right. So you don't get your degree, if I'm reading your bio, your timeline here, you don't go back to get your degree till a little bit later.
No.
So tell us a little bit, where'd you go to high school here? And then what were you thinking about doing? What, your first jobs, what kind of things were you looking to do? What did you want to do?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to go into sales. I was the product of a salesman. My dad was always in sales growing up, so I learned from the best. And I graduated high school, Ridgeview High School in Clay County, which is where I reside now, and went right away to the University of North Florida. I was in the honors program there. I knew I wanted to do something business related, most likely sales, just because my dad was my hero and has always been in sales. And so started with a business management major and worked at a spa, actually managed a spa at the time all through college. And
Okay. That's why the spa was first before I was looking at the dates and trying to put your timeline together.
I started at that spa. It was called Panache Day Spa. It was probably one of the biggest full service day spas in Northeast Florida. And it just so happened to be in, Clay County, and started working there in high school. This is kind of a fun story. It really was one of my first jobs. I started there as a housekeeper. So I did all of the laundry for the women that were there for their spa day. I served them their lunches, just did the housekeeping stuff for the spa, clean the toilets, all that fun stuff. And then I moved up to front desk and I became a receptionist. And then from there, they needed a front desk manager and started managing the front desk. And then from there, when I was in my second year of college, the woman who managed the whole spa for the owner, she left and I knew I wanted that job. And so I went to the owner and I told her, I know that I'm really young. I just graduated high school last year, but I'm in school for business management and I really think that I can do this. And I think this would be a really great learning opportunity for me. And I think she was really caught off guard because I was so forward about it.
Right.
But she said, let me go home and think about this and figure out how we can work it in with your college schedule. And she came back to me 2 days later and she said, I think I've got the perfect plan. She said, I know you're in college and this really is a full-time job. And I've got another woman who was interested. I'm thinking the best thing would be for you to split the position. And that way you can still go to school full-time. You can manage the spa. She was also thinking this would be, more of a part-time thing for her. So why don't you both split?
Part-timers make a
part-timers make a full-timer. So that's what we did.
Awesome.
And so I got management experience under my belt really, really early on and loved it. But then, after doing that, I realized maybe I really want to learn more of the marketing side. And I thought that would help me, with marketing for the spa and things like that. And so I changed my degree to marketing and ended up getting my
because you were there at the spa, if I
bachelor's.
recall, like 5 years or so, right? Yeah.
From high school all the way through the end of college.
Okay, that's what. Okay, I was reading the spa, and I'm like, oh, she started the spa, and then you graduated later, but actually you were doing
16
both.
years old. I was doing both at the same time.
Wow.
And stayed there and had that job and ended up running the whole spa for the owner.
I can just imagine, and you can give more clarity, more color on it. Running a spa like that, obviously, I imagine they're doing everything from cutting hair to massages, all facials, all those things in between, nails, and all that kind of stuff. A lot of those people are part-timers themselves. A lot of, I don't know, I assume a lot of them were actually probably paid 1099.
Right.
Yeah.
Most of them were employees and just, were paid commission.
Okay. So they had some, but they can take their skill to a lot of different places. And it's always in need for the next great nail tech. The hairstylist, just like a real estate agent, gathers their customer base, their regulars that are coming in. And obviously, they want to build that to the point where that's all they have. They don't have to look at getting new customers. So you what was kind of the challenge of the spa from the standpoint of retention, keeping those people happy so that they are staying as long and they're not looking, the grass is greener over the fence type of thing?
Right. It was definitely a combination of things. The nice thing, like you said, is for the new people coming in, they were receiving clientele because there were people that would book their spa day. And so they were happy to go with whatever service provider. And so then it was up to the service provider to follow up with them and try to get them back on a regular schedule after their spa day. So really taking care of them and giving them a base of clients, but then, providing training. And, we oftentimes did parties for our employees just to keep it fun.
Does this sound like a real estate brokerage?
It does a little bit. It's very, all, in the business world, everything can be used and honed in on. So.
Right. Because I think one of the biggest challenges for any successful brokerage, is retention.
Right.
And we have probably a very small, minor percent of agents who have, if they've been doing this business 20 years, have stayed with the same brokerage. Some have only been doing it a few years and are already on their third or fourth brokerage as well. So just, I was looking at what kind of things did you pick up and relate to the real estate world and what you're doing now and working with these people. Obviously, you're not a broker, but I imagine now 4 years of experience, you're an elite. They do see you as a pseudo leader in the office, someone that others are looking up to.
It's all about the culture.
Yeah.
It's all about the culture, which is why I chose the brokerage that I'm at now, because, I interviewed with a few and I just knew that, that was the right fit for me. And I think that that's so important in any business atmosphere, is just making sure that it's a healthy, culture for people where
Right.
they want to stay and they want to belong.
All right. We're going to hold that thought because we're going to come around to one of the most important questions, is why you chose Vanguard. So you go on to a series of other corporate jobs.
Correct.
Type of things. What are some of the things that you picked up, maybe even learned about yourself? Because you leave the spa, you're what? Are you 23, 24?
Not even.
Yeah. And then you go and take some of these corporate account representative type jobs. What are some of the things that you're learning about yourself that, because the next question, if you lead into, that you're actually using today, or some of those skills that are working with different people from all over the world, because that's what we got coming into Northeast Florida. They're coming from all different directions. What are some of the things you picked up in corporate America that you kind of instilled into your repertoire today?
I think the biggest thing is confidence. So, looking at my career journey from, starting at the spa in high school and then working into college, I just saw myself as this timid, 16-year-old girl who was just kind of hiding behind the scenes and doing the laundry and cleaning the toilets at the spa, to, then moving to the front desk and realizing, oh, I can do this. And then, oh, I think I could manage because I have the skill set, I have the knowledge base, and I want to do this. And I've always just been a super driven person. I've worked since I was 14 years old. The minute I could get a job, I had a job.
Right.
And so just always wanting to better yourself, I think, is the most important thing. And that's, what I did, but again, I was not confident when I first went to the owner and told her I wanted that management job, but I did it anyway. I was terrified, but she believed in me. And I think her belief in me is what gave me the confidence to.
That's interesting, because I think a lot of us go through imposter syndrome. That's the word.
Yes.
Something in you got pushed you 51% to go say, the other 49 is saying you're not good enough.
Yes.
Type of thing.
Yes.
She obviously saw you were good enough, but also I could see where you're pulling back on yourself. You're 19 years old and you're like, I'm going to come in here and manage these women that were, no, sorry, maybe you had some guys in there too. I don't want to be that way, but that have got a lot, probably have worked for other spas, other salons, all that kind of thing going on. And now you're going to come in and they're like, oh, they just appointed this, this young girl, and she's going to come in here and ruffle the feathers. She's going to stir things up. She doesn't even know what she's talking about.
Right. And that was definitely part of it. I was 19 and I asked for that job. There were women who were 2 and 3 times my age, managing, the hair salon and the nail salon. And I'm thinking, I'm going to have to really be in charge of them. If I'm working directly for the owner, they're not going to take me serious. And there was a little bit of some of that. There were some people that tried to, push me or intimidate me.
See how far they could go.
And it worked sometimes. I go home and cry about it. But again, I learned so much through that. And I learned that it doesn't matter your age. As long as you're willing to do the job, that's all that matters.
Yeah. What a valuable experience in the fact that the spa owner, gave you the keys basically to run it, obviously with your other part-time partner. But I mean, what an opportunity in going through school. So what is it about real estate that you're in these corporate account management? Do you have a friend that was a real estate agent? What was it that started to put your eyes on real estate?
I really had always thought about it, even in high school. I thought it was something that I, would be interested in doing. And when I was in high school, my mom actually worked for Coldwell Banker. It was not Coldwell Banker at the time. It was just Vanguard GMAC Realty.
Right.
But my mom worked there. She was not a realtor, but she helped with their marketing and did a lot of the office administration type things. But my mom went out and got her license and didn't really end up going into real estate, needed a salaried job at the time, which I completely respected. But she would always come home talking about it. And it was something that she was passionate about, and I knew that it was something I would enjoy. With, like you had mentioned in my profile, I was always into decorating. I mean, in college, I was always shopping and decorating my room and changing it, looking at houses. I was a big dreamer. So it was just always something that, I was interested in. But, as you start working and have a nice steady income coming in, it's scary to take that leap and go into a job where you don't make any money until you sell something.
You got the benefits and everything of corporate America, even though you might be working for some commission. There is some structure there, or people like to think the name, but really, I think I think you would agree in this business now, whether it's a loan officer or a real estate agent, it's really not the company behind you for me, because there is a lot of back office stuff doing, but for you as a real estate agent, you are your brand. You are who you are, and they're buying you. They're not. The Coldwell Banker Vanguard is behind it and gives it some credibility that you are a legitimate agent. But when it comes to the service quality and everything, it's each individual agent themselves.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
We skipped over to bought your first house at 21.
Yes.
How did that opportunity come up for you?
Well, I had that, steady job at the spa, and that really, launched me to be in a position where I could buy a property.
And you were still going to school.
I was still going to school. I was in my last year of school whenever I ended up buying. It was a townhouse, but that was just a really big accomplishment for me. I had a good job. I was managing. I actually worked a couple other part-time jobs through college too.
Yeah.
But, I was just a hard worker.
Yeah.
So I had enough money for a down payment, and I did it. So instead of renting, I saved up enough to where I could just put a down payment down on my first
just
home.
speaking, I know right now that it can be difficult because obviously where interest rates are at, home values are at all-time highs. It's really difficult, but you were in the grind. You had the grit to put it together, work multiple part-time jobs to get that first townhouse. Do you still own that townhouse?
I actually just sold it a couple years ago.
Just sold it a couple years ago.
I did. I had it for a while and had it as an investment property, and it was really good. It was a great first home and a great investment.
And probably had some decent equity growth off of it, and how it can change the trajectory of someone's life to be able to get involved and buy a home in your young 20s like that. And then the fact that you had made it an income property shortly thereafter, and it's been I'm going to guess 20 years or so, that you've owned that home. Yes. So I don't know if you almost had it paid off, but it certainly, did it even double in price value?
It didn't quite double in price because I bought when the market was high, before the crash.
Yeah.
But still, I still had equity based on just time.
Well, I was just bringing up occasionally, those agents have been here long enough to bend through the 2007, 8, and 9 when the housing values had dropped considerably. You bought on the rise, but you held it long enough that now you actually it's paid off for you from an equity side because you let the renters pay your mortgage.
Yes,
yeah.
I did.
Yeah,
I sure did.
Just stepping stones, and I think I had a young agent on in her mid-20s doing very well, but we were talking about her friends that are in her age group and so forth that they want to buy a house, and if they're able to in their 20s, they're thinking like that's the end game. When not realizing like what you did, buying that first townhouse, knowing that was a starter home for you.
Right. It's a stepping stone.
Yeah. In the education out there, you need to put the grind together and get in the real estate game.
Get in the real estate game. Don't pay somebody else's mortgage.
Yeah. All right. So you have this fancy for real estate. What actually triggers you to make a move? Or do you just go, hey, let me just go take the test and see what happens? What happens here?
It's a combination of all of that. In 2020, I think COVID caused a lot of people to reevaluate their lives and what they were doing, because for a lot of people, what they were used to and the way they were used to working completely shifted. And that's what happened to me. I was working for a bank. I was in banking sales. I covered the entire state of Florida. And I, for a while had traveled, and my favorite part of my job at the time was sitting face to face with people. And that was all completely shut down during COVID. I worked for a bank that was out of the Midwest. And, where Florida was a little bit more open than the Midwest, they told all of us around the country that we all had to move our meetings to Zoom and not face to face. And for somebody like me, I'm, face to face is just what I love. And
that's why I like doing the show face to face.
Because
I'll do
it's
some Zoom, but
it's real. Zoom's not the same. And when you're on, conference calls and corporate trainings all day long, the last thing you want to do is have another meeting with a person face to face. And you can't even see people, in your family across the country and all that. People just are craving face to face contact, and that was completely cut out. And so I did almost a year of that, and it just wasn't the same. It just wasn't rewarding anymore. And I think a lot of us kind of did that whole, what do I want to be when I grow up? And you kind of start rethinking things and wanting to start over again. And I really did just sit down and make a list of, things that I had thought about doing in the past. And real estate was still on that list as it was before. And finally, I was like, why don't I just try this? Why don't I just take the next step? I think when you look at doing something different and making a big life change, it tends to become overwhelming. And I think that's what I did in the past. It was like, oh, this is too scary. Yes, I've been in sales, and yes, I'm confident in my abilities, but that's scary to move from a good, cushy bank, salary job where I did make commission on top of that, but, I had benefits and all those things. It's just scary to take that leap of faith and start a job where you don't make any commission until you sell something. But I did. I just decided to take the next step.
So did you have some conversations with some people?
Yes.
Okay.
Started talking to my husband. I run everything by him.
I would expect a change like that. Yeah, you'd have that.
But he was totally supportive and was like, the most important thing is that you're happy and that you're doing what you love. Life's too short to not do something that you love. And so I started talking to him. I signed up for the class. I was like, okay, I'll just take the class and then we'll go from there. If I decide, after taking the class that I feel confident, then maybe I'll quit the bank job. So I signed up for a class, and then I immediately thought of Kim Knapp, who I knew, my mom knew because she worked at Vanguard at the time.
Okay.
And so I reached out to her and said, I know that you're very well known, in the industry, and I just want to pick your brains. And that was before I even took the course. And she was so generous with her time and sat down with me. We talked for well over an hour, and I just told her, I want to go into real estate, but I'm scared. And what advice do you have for me? And she was wonderful. She gave me so much great advice. She gave me a ninja selling book and told me to read it. She said, this will be the best thing you ever read. If you decide to go into real estate, this will jumpstart your career. And I did. I took that book. I read it before I even took the real estate course, which was awesome. And I highly recommend that book.
Ninja Selling. It's just
Kendall.
Ninja Selling?
Yes.
I just finished a book. I'm going to get this one. I listen to Audible on my way back and forth.
Yes. It will be a game
Ninja
changer.
Selling, because I've heard others talk about the Ninja program or whatever, and I never dug into what they were actually referring to. I knew it was a training of in sales, but what? So I'll learn what that what is. So I've talked to others who went to Kim first. There's some others who Kim said, hey, go talk to some other brokers. And they never came back to Kim, unfortunately. I guess it's one of those things, if you love something, let it go. Right. Did Kim suggest that to you? Or
she did. She said talk to other brokers and just, get a feel for it, but, make sure it's a good fit for you. But I knew right away that day that she was somebody that I wanted to learn from and have mentor me. So I really didn't interview any other brokers. I knew I'm going to get my license. And if I, do decide to take this leap, I'm going to go work at Coldwell Banker Vanguard. And so I told Kim, as soon as I get my license, I'll call you. And so I took the 7-day, 60-hour course, the crash course, and studied for a week. Got my license, took my test the following week, and was licensed. So that was all in December. And December 30th, I had my real estate license and called Kim Knapp and said, I think I'm ready to do this.
Excellent.
So
what's some of your first, you're going from corporate America where you were working remotely, so you probably kind of structured your day and type of thing. But like any bank, 5:00, they're closed, right? Everyone, or it's, it's Labor Day, it's Memorial Day, they're closed, President's Day, whatever. Now you were on your own. The first day you're walking into Coldwell Banker Vanguard. Just talk about some of the things that goes through your mind in that first couple of weeks walking in there, that, there isn't a check coming. The benefits are cut off. What's going through your mind?
Right. Complete terror. I was terrified. I was excited, but I was terrified because, again, it's like, okay.
Sounds like Back to the Spa at 19. It's 19 years.
Anything new is intimidating. It's exciting, and you're ready to just crush your goals, but then it's like, okay, how do I do that? And so, again, went to Kim and was like, what's the best way to get started? And she said, just reach out to all your people. Tell them you're starting in real estate, and it's all about just getting in front of as many people as possible. So that's what I started doing. And that's really what the Ninja Selling book is about. And so I was so grateful that I read that book because it did give me a system and a process to follow. And it really is all about relationship building, which is so natural and so comfortable for me that that felt like the right thing to do. So instead of, just picking up the phone and asking people if they want to buy or sell a house, I really just started loving on my people and sending them cards and asking them to lunch and telling people what I'm doing and asking if they'll just support me.
Right.
And so, that's how the business took off.
So fortunate for you, you pretty much grew up there.
Yes.
You went to Ridgeview High.
Yes.
You know a lot of people locally just from there and
Right.
friends and associates that are there. Did you have a marketing budget? Like you said, you're sending out cards or some things that had, you're taking people to lunch. There's an expense there. Did you have a little budget for that? Or your husband's working and you just, hey, you both agreed this is what
Right.
I'm going to do?
Right.
Because there's only so many cards you can send in a
Right.
day and so many lunches you can have in a
Right.
day.
Absolutely.
So we knew there was, a kind of a reasonable cap of expenses.
Right.
But did you have that plan?
It was a very minimal budget, just I'll try to do 2 coffees or 2 lunches a week, So it was very, very minimal, but really the idea and what I did was just to stay in front of as many people as possible, even if that meant, in my normal life circles at the gym or wherever, just talking to people. And so that's what I did. And then just following up with them and not even talking about real estate, but just talking about life.
Right.
And staying top
But
of
you did
mind
want to
with
share
people.
with them because now
Oh,
you're
of
changed
course,
career,
yeah,
right?
Because I needed people to know that I was new and
Yeah.
that I wasn't in banking anymore. So it was just a lot of, this is what I'm doing now.
Right. How long does it take you to get your first deal?
It only took me, I had my first deal. Let's see, I started in January. I closed my first one at the end of April. So
Okay.
about 4 months.
Okay. It sounds simple to some of the things you said. I would imagine you had to structure your day. Imagine, obviously listening, ninja selling.
Yes.
It isn't just, hey, just get up when you
No.
want in the morning and go walk out. And maybe you'll run into some of the
No.
people that you know.
Not at
What
all.
kind of structured things, besides having, 2 coffees or 2 lunch, that's a structure. You're setting a
Right.
schedule and you're having
It's a
it.
little
What are
piece
some
of
of
it.
those structured things that you were
Right.
doing?
I just wanted to work. Like I told you, I've always had a job since I was 14. I'm a worker. And so I just showed up at the office every morning at 8 o'clock. I wanted to be the first one there. So I usually was the first one at the office besides the person who was turning on the lights because I wanted to be in the office and I wanted to hear from all of the experienced agents that have been doing it 15, 20 years. And that was a piece of advice that somebody else had given me. And I was willing to take any advice that was coming my way at the time. And so I was at the office every single day. And I was just looking at, what was going on in the market. I was there asking questions, listening to conversations that the top agents were having and asking them if I can host their open houses for them, So I
Right.
wanted to be there. I wanted them to see that I was at the office every day. I was willing to work. I was willing to help, the other agents. And I think that was a big part of it also. I was hosting not just one open house every weekend, but a lot of times 2 and 3, sometimes 4.
Right.
Whatever I could get, I was taking.
If you can maybe even share a specific story, if you can recall, of something that not necessarily wowed you, but something you didn't know that you picked up from one of these agents about real estate. Because I think, you used the word confidence earlier, and a lot of agents come in and they're obviously, like anything, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so you're not confident at first.
Right.
So you're trying to gather some of the knowledge of 5, 10, 15 years, agents who have done a number of transactions. You're trying to grab some of their knowledge and their experiences and put it into yourself so you can have a level of confidence. But in listening or working in open house, was there anything you were like, oh my God, I didn't even realize, good or bad or indifferent about real estate that you didn't already know?
There was so much. I mean, it's hard to even pinpoint one thing. I had a notebook, a very small notebook that I would carry with me everywhere. And the minute I thought of any kind of question, I would write it down. And so part of my routine every week was, again, just trying to get in front of agents. And even though we're all, independent business owners, and that's the one thing that I loved and why I chose the office that I'm in, because I did see that everybody was willing to help and was willing to share. And that was the culture that I wanted to be a part of. And so I would ask, these agents, can I just ride for you? Can I just see what you do and how you talk? Can I learn the lingo? And thankfully, there were so many people that were willing to let me do that.
So, okay, well, I'm glad we dug that out of you because this is what I want to share for the listeners. You did some ride-alongs.
Oh, absolutely.
Went to some listing appointments, went to some
Absolutely.
buyer consultations.
I went to all of it.
What are some things that you picked up, whether it's style or process that you picked up from these agents on these ride-alongs?
I mean, I learned that everybody was so different and so unique as far as their style and their processes. So
Not only the customers are different, but every agent had a
Right.
little bit different way of doing it.
everybody.
Yeah.
And so really it was just a matter of taking bits and pieces from each person and then adapting it to make it work for me and for my clients. So it was not just one thing, it was just little bites of the apple that, I would take notes on everything. And again, little by little, I was just adding more to my processes and to the things that I was saying and doing.
What do you think during that time was probably, like I said, there had to be something that you didn't know about the business that you learned when you went out and sat beside them? Because I think in everybody's, you change career, change total industries, basically. I mean, banking, but you're a real estate agent now. You're hanging out with these real estate agents, listening to what they're doing and how they're presenting, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't even realize. We go back since the internet age, and they have been telling us that, eventually, we won't need real estate agents. I remember my girlfriend in college, her father eventually became president of the bank there at the time. He's passed away since, but he said like insurance will be sold out of vending machines, eventually. But really, the real estate business, every customer's different. Every home's different, every negotiation, all these little things that is involved.
Right.
People don't realize that real estate agents are there to obviously guide and instruct how to get through those little bumps in the road.
Right.
And that there's no way that a computer can replace the human transaction, because our homes are all different. It's not an apartment complex.
Right.
We're all, hey, you want a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, or 3-bedroom, boom, that's it. Because that building's right in the same spot.
Right. Right.
Every house is different, whether you're living on that side of the river, this side of the river, going to Ridgeview High versus Clay High, whatever it is, that customer wants or needs, right?
Right.
Type of thing. So as I say, if there's what I'm trying to hopefully bring out, maybe you'll come up with it later, is that situation where you're sitting down with that agent and all of a sudden realizing, maybe the type of transaction that's going on and going, oh my goodness, I didn't realize you needed to do that, because I think there's so many different things that we stumble through, and agents who have been doing this for years, and as loan officers, we still run across stuff that we haven't, and we've got to go to others who hopefully have seen it.
Right.
To put it together.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing. And I think that's what you're trying to get at, is that no two transactions are ever the same based on, you're always dealing with a different seller, a different buyer, a different, and they have unique circumstances in their life. And so have technology completely take over our roles, because one of the biggest things is when these bumps happen, you have to know who to go to. And part of being successful in this industry is not just us, the team of people that are behind us. So having a solid lender that we can go to ask these questions, or, being able to go and reach out to the property appraiser and having a connection with him, or, the title attorney, and just, all of a sudden we need to change something, or we need to draw up some kind of separate agreement. We've got to have these people in place to support us and to make things happen quickly, because things are changing on the fly.
Yeah, you made me just think of something. I mean, because there's some people that are good at translating the issue to the customer. You wouldn't allow that. There's some people that are really good at getting the information, but that you would never allow them to talk directly to the customer, because the customer would probably hit the ceiling if they heard them tell it, versus you taking it and going, hey, this is our challenge. This is how we're going to overcome it. And a lot of the times, I'm just thinking of that title attorney. Some attorneys can be very, they don't have the personality, basically. It's just their business.
Right.
And they can tell you everything that's wrong with it. Or the home inspector, right? Isn't that a big thing in home inspecting? And when the home inspectors have gone, their business has translated into a relationship. And how do you take the report and explain to them that it's really not that bad? This is all you need to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's how I was trying to dig out there. So what are some things that you've seen some of these mentors, now you're starting to get your first sale. You start going through what are some things you start to develop yourself as a routine, whether it's marketing, what are you doing to stay top of mind to this circle of people that you're exposing your new career with?
It's a combination. No one channel is going to keep your name out there. And so it's a combination of learning, how to stay top of mind with your people. And so it's not just, sending a thank you card. It's not just sending, emails with this is what I'm doing right now, or not just posting videos on social media. It's a combination of all of that. People want to see you busy. And so, it's being on social media because, as we know, everybody's on social media
Right.
and spends a lot of time there, and often too much time.
Yeah.
But, being on social media, just showing people what you're doing. Here's an open house that I'm hosting. Here's a showing that I'm doing. Sending emails, with what's going on in the market, market updates, sending cards, sending a
Are you
monthly
farming any
newsletter.
Are you farming any
I
neighborhoods?
started farming my specific neighborhood where I lived,
Right.
all of those things. So it was not just one thing.
I think
It was
I think a
all.
lot of agents aren't doing that consistently, and I think it's I had Krista Mashore on probably a year and a half ago now. She teaches it. She has a whole routine that she has for it, but she farms several neighborhoods, and that's where she gets her business. She's got her brother in the business. He's actually running the real estate because she's doing all the training. But that's how they run their business, to get these people in the neighborhood, click on or get that QR code or whatever it is, which gives them to a landing site, and she has this whole routine. But I think, that's a high level way to do it and something to graduate to. But even, like I said, just regularly touching your local peeps, and maybe not even be your neighborhood, maybe just a neighborhood you want to work in, to become the perceived expert.
Right.
Yeah. What are some things that you're doing in your neighborhood that you do to a farm? Are you doing is this something on a regular, quarterly, monthly basis or something?
I was doing just a series of postcards to get my name out there. I have since slowed down on that. But I think, again, the most important thing is just finding the one thing, finding your one thing, your one channel. For some people, that is farming. For some people, I've had people that are super involved in their kids, baseball. And so they're going to the baseball games, and they're, wearing their real estate, shirt, and they're talking to every single parent. And that's where their business is coming from. I'm a volleyball mom. So, you bet I'm going to wear my shirt. This is Danielle Wolbert, Realtor. And,
Right.
People just naturally start asking me questions about their house and their neighborhood. So it's just finding that one thing, that one channel, and then, if that's where you're having the most success, you hone in on that even more.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had a couple people, Jordan Feria, which I know and I think it was Erica, talked about going to the ball games. Practices, whatever, with just by wearing the T-shirt, because people will. One, it's just, how many times you sat on the bench, the parent down, you don't say nothing, but because you're wearing that, real estate becomes, it's just a common just thing to talk about.
Right.
Hey, how's the market going? Right. It's just an icebreaker that they may not even be really interested in real estate at that time, but they want to talk to you. But they see that, so hey, what's going on in the market? Hey, and it's just an icebreaker. They may just want to talk to you about their kid or what's going on, or just because you see each other at the ball game. But real estate becomes the thing, and then you create a relationship from it.
Absolutely.
I have the vision. I want to get into creating some of these, because Gigi Urbanski, she's getting them somewhere. I don't know. I think she might be creating some just crazy real estate T-shirts that she wears all the time. Yeah. So how has your business now, you're almost 4 years, right? How is your business consistency of doing what you're doing? You started farming your neighborhood. You really are working your, circle of influence, as they would say. How much of your business now is just that circle of influence, past clients, versus totally new customer that, I don't know, caught you on a website somewhere? Yeah. If you even market to that, do you even market to that area?
It's really all word of mouth.
Yeah.
My business is completely 100% word of mouth. People in my sphere and people in my sphere of influence who have referred me to their friends and family. I think I've received 1 or 2 calls, from my website, or I had a funny one a couple of months ago. Somebody found me on the Coldwell Banker website. So they had used Coldwell Banker before. So that there is that nice, name behind us at Coldwell Banker. But their last name started with W. This cracked me up. And I appreciated it so much because he said, I went to your office website and then I went to the bottom and found another W and I called you. And I was so grateful for that because normally I'm at the bottom of the list, and
Right.
you're called last for everything.
Right.
So that was kind of funny and kind of fun. But for, that was a one-off type thing, which again.
That should be a challenge for every real estate brokerage to
Yeah.
actually put the names on the site based on last month's production, right?
Right.
And just
yeah.
actually every month or
It's
maybe
just
every quarter.
alphabetical order. Yeah.
put 'em-
Rotate them around.
Yeah, it puts a little competition and so forth, and then
Yeah.
people,
I need to talk to our office manager about that because
it's a little bit of work, but it's a little bit of incentive
Right.
because you
It really
you might get
is.
1 or 2 a year from that.
It really is.
Yeah.
So that was a fun one. But for the most part, when I've looked at my business for this year, it's all been repeat and referrals. So
I asked this question with Paula Powell a couple days ago. Some of the sales things, I forget where I actually got it from. They're like, look at your last 10 deals or 20 deals. Where did they come from? And then focus your energy on that source.
Mm-hmm.
And this source, you're getting referred by past clients and so forth. What do you do for that past client, especially one that's maybe sent you a couple deals over the last 4 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing to keep that bond strong?
Just making them feel special for, thanking them, number one, right away. The minute that person calls, I pick up the phone, when I get off the phone with that referral, and I call the person that referred them and just thank them and tell them how grateful I am and just assure them that I'm going to take good care of their friend or their family member.
Right.
And then from there, I send a thank you card and usually, a cup of coffee or something. And then I'll keep them updated because again, if they're referring them to you, they want to know what's going on. And they want to know that was successful, that their friend bought a house and that their friend's happy.
And they were part of that.
They're part of that. They want to be included.
Yeah.
And so I include them through the whole process. And hey, oh my gosh, have you seen the house we're under contract on now? Like, you're going to be so happy for them. Just again, keeping them involved in the process.
I would bet that if we took a survey and actually got down, now some people may lie about it, but the importance of that, when you refer somebody, it could be just to a restaurant, that they respond back to you, hey, we went to that restaurant you recommended, we had a great time.
Yes.
That means a lot to people.
It really does.
Yeah.
It really does.
So reaching out and touching. So I want to dig in a little bit about, express to, a possible client who may be listening to the show now or 3 years from now, whatever, just your ideology of the business, how you work, what do you love about the business and so forth. So we'll start off with we have the new buyer broker agreement. Okay. Which I think personally, and I'm sure you'll agree because you're a top producer, the buyer broker agreement, if you weren't doing it before, is actually a great marketing opportunity because you telling the buyer you have to do it, which you do, but now it actually gives you the moment to get in front of them. Like you said, you like to be one-on-one. I would imagine you try to do these as many face-to-face as you
Always.
can. Yeah.
Always.
And now you start really building they already know you, but now you're going to build that like and trust piece. Tell us a little bit of some of the things you like to do in that consultation.
I was doing buyer consultations before and had a folder. So now bringing in that buyer broker agreement just adds a whole nother level of professionalism. And while it sounded scary and daunting at first, for a lot of us who I wasn't using them all the time.
You were doing a consultation, but you weren't necessarily doing an agreement.
A buyer broker agreement because, a lot of my business is based off of referrals. So, a lot of times those people were referred and they want to work with you. And so it was a little scary at first, I'm not going to lie, but just like anything, you just have to rip the Band-Aid off. But after going through it and presenting it to people and getting their feedback, it makes you realize it's not bad at all. It's a good thing. I never once thought it was a bad thing. It was just change. Change can be scary and we get set in our ways.
Some hairs might come off with that Band-Aid.
Right, exactly. But people appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's not scary to them. It's they appreciate that you're going through this agreement and you're showing them the first part of it is explaining to them our responsibilities as their representative.
Right.
And so we're really emphasizing what we're going to do for them and what we owe them as a transaction broker, and just the level of skill, care, diligence, honesty, all of those things that we, are committing to with that. And at the same time, they have to commit to cooperate with us. So again, it's just creating that next level of professionalism. And I think that it makes people feel confident in what you're going to do for them.
Yeah. I imagine your buyer, your consultation before, because a lot of these people are being referred, they already, there is a trust factor because their friend or whatever referred you there. But now you actually have to go into, or it sounds like basically the way you explained it, the need to kind of explain some of the things that you do that they don't actually ever, and know, if you're not in real estate, you don't know that you're doing.
Right.
Or that the agent is doing.
Right.
To our listeners, to an agent out there right now, what do you think are some, just 2 or 3 really key things that you like to share with the buyer that you're doing behind the scenes that maybe you weren't doing before, but the buyer broker agreement now says, hey, I need to show them my value and make them want to sign this document?
I mean, there's so many facets of that. And I have a whole nother document that I've started bringing in and using when I'm presenting that. And it's called 184 Ways Realtors Are Worth Every Penny of Their Commission. And it literally...
You steal that from somewhere?
I did. We don't call that stealing. We call it rip off and duplicate. R&D. And we love to do that. We love to share.
Yeah.
But 184 ways that we're worth every penny. And I love that because, again, people don't realize how much time we put in behind the scenes, how many nights, even though we say that we're done at, 7 o'clock at night to have dinner with our family, how many nights we're on our laptop at 10, 11, 12, going back over something that somebody needs at the last minute or solving a problem. There are just, again, you can't even name them all. So it's really nice to share that with people because I don't think they realize it. They think that we're just, on Selling Sunset and we're, stopping by after brunch to show them a beautiful house. And then, we have people helping us with everything else. And that's not the case. We work for ourselves. And, a lot of times all of that is on us, or maybe we have a transaction coordinator to help with some of it. But there's a lot of behind the scenes work. And
well, you're paying for the transaction coordinator out of your commission, so that's part of that. Right. So what I visualize is this: you could do it in one pager, but this list of terms or phrases of all the different, describing all these different things that you're doing, and I could see myself putting that in front of somebody the way you're describing, and maybe circling 2 or 3 that are really important.
Right.
But by the vision or the perception of this huge 184 items that are on this list, are like, oh my God. And you're just pointing out 2 or 3 that are the biggest ones. Yeah.
It's funny because a lot of times, I'll talk to them because at that time, they may just be kind of starting to think about buying a home and maybe they're not fully, there yet. And by the time we're done with that conversation, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't even remember everything we talked about. And you can tell they're starting to feel overwhelmed. Right. And it's like, don't worry, you don't have to remember all of this. I'm here to help you. I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to, be a part of the process from the beginning to the end. And every, deadline, every, reminder, you'll get from me. So you don't have to remember all of this. And then they're like, oh, thank you. So they realize how overwhelming of a process it can be. And that's why you need somebody on your side. That's why you need people reminding you what's next.
Have you had anybody, because it's only been a month. Yeah, it was August 17th, right? So it hasn't even been a month yet. But have you done one of these buyer consultations and had it at least, not necessarily a hard objection? Sometimes I think it's just a soft objection just to see how you respond. But anybody, when you said, hey, and I need you to sign this and turn the document to them, give you an objection?
I've not.
Yeah.
It's funny. I prepare myself for that. And I even bring the one-time showing agreement document that we can use,
right.
Which is, we kind of joke about it. Like, if you don't want to commit yet, you can kind of date us and you can sign this one-time showing agreement document. We can go look at this one house together and then we can talk about, the exclusive. And most of the time they're like, no, it's fine. I'll sign this one, I'll sign this.
Because you did such a good presentation. You showed them your value. These things are like, Wow. Yeah. I think that's one of the things in sales. And I think as agents who are listening, and obviously they reach out to you. And if you're having a challenge with that buyer's consultation where you are getting a lot of objections, it may be because, well, one, I would write down every objection you get. Correct. Because that means in the next presentation, you actually want to cover it. Say, hey, I had a client, their objection last month was this, and this is why. And then immediately come over. So it kills it right there. Right. It's already been conversed. But how you're presenting and over showing the value, and it doesn't, and I don't think it necessarily means time. It's how you're actually presenting it. I like the 184 thing list.
Right. It's just all about communicating your value and how you're going to help them and what you're going to do for them.
Talking to someone who may be a future client of yours, either buying or listing, tell us what just express your passion. You've gotten into business. I imagine, are you doing better now than you were actually in corporate America?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. How it's changed your lifestyle and just increased your passion and love for what you do.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when I talk to people and they've asked, how long have you been in real estate and what do you love about it? I tell people I wish I did it sooner. I was in corporate America just grinding. And yes, it was good to me and I loved the people that I worked with, but it wasn't my true passion. I've been involved in women's ministry in my church, outside of my church. That's really a passion of mine. And so I've been able to take the two things that I love, which is real estate and, women's ministry and mentoring women and combining the two together.
Awesome.
And so, it's just everything that I love all wrapped up into one. I get to fully be myself, and as you know, in corporate America, you don't always get to to do that. There's only so much time in the day, but I've gotten to combine, my life and the things that I love to do, my passions, my interests, into one. And it's so beautiful because, again, when you love what you do, you don't feel like you're working a day in your life. Yeah. You're just doing what you love.
I believe those outside the industry, and even those who've just gotten into this industry, whether it is from the lending side or it's from the real estate side, because if you guys are calling us at 8:00 on a Saturday evening, there's a reason that you're doing it. And I've always in the business, real estate agents will say, just answer the phone. I'm like, everyone, well, that's easy. Well, you know what? There's some people that come up with all different excuses why they can't answer the phone at 8:00 on a Saturday night, but it's not like every 8:00 on a Saturday night you're calling. If you're calling at 8:00 on a Saturday night, especially when you first got started and sales were hot and heavy, you had to make sure your offer was in there at sunrise, type of thing. So if someone's calling, they're needing something, and that's been our business. But to go back to what I wanted to say is a lot of people getting into the industry or a lot of people outside the industry don't understand that mix of the lifestyle. Your life becomes what you do. Yes. And whether you're at the ball game and you're socializing and making friends, you're marketing at that point.
Right.
You may say, "Oh, I don't want to do that." No, you're not. You're not selling a house. It's not like they came there, they weren't thinking about buying a house, and now you convinced them into buying a certain house. It's not how it works.
No.
They're coming to you with a need. You're providing a service. All you're doing is letting people know that you do what you do.
Right. I'm here.
Yeah.
If you need my help.
So being involved, which allows you in your mind to be involved in these women's ministries and so forth, because you're there strengthening your relationship, doing what you want to do. Everyone there knows you're a real estate agent. They need a realtor. You're the first person they're probably going to think of because they're spending this time with a similar passion that you have. Right. And that's what I think, agents and all salespeople are asking, what's your avatar? What are you looking for? Well, the reality is we're really looking for people just like ourselves because we attract like kind.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. How important do you think it is in the long term for agents to be involved in these other passions, whether it's volunteer work or so forth, as being the overall picture of them as their brand, but also the networking opportunities that you run into that you may not even have thought of when you walked in there and it goes, "Hey, I'm my friend." You weren't expecting someone to refer you something, but you walked in there and the first thing they want to do because they know you from there. But how important, what kind of business are you getting from that you're just getting in a subtle, passive way, from being involved in these other activities?
That's it. It's vital.
Yeah.
That's where most of my business comes from. Again, it's just being in front of people, being around the people that I love, just being me.
The kids create a lot of that, right?
Yes,
You have,
yes.
I believe you have
I have two daughters.
Two daughters. So their activities
Yep.
have created networking
Kids
opportunities.
activities, church activities, again, just being involved in these different groups of women. Again, just being me. I'm hardly talking about real estate. They know that's what I do.
Right.
But I'm just, doing what I love and being with my friends and staying true to myself.
Did you feel, people knew you from the corporate America, those friends. Some people are successful at making the transfer at first, and their friends are already know, like, and trust them. But you jumped into real estate. Did you have some friends that kind of like, well, let's see what happens with it? Or, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, because I know some have made that, but I probably didn't ask that question to them directly like that. Were there people who maybe bought with someone else because you were only 3 months into it yet? They wanted to see, does she know what she's doing?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think there were probably 2 or 3 people my first year that I'm like, man, I know they know that I just got into real estate. Why didn't they call me? But I understand, depending on what their goals were, or, maybe they were wanting to make sure that they had somebody, experienced that would, and I learned not to take those things personally. Of course, your first year, you're hungry for business. And so, of course, you're like, well, I thought they would have called me. But that's okay. People do want to see you successful. They do want to see that you're going to stick with it, right? That this is not just some little change. But it all works out in the end. And I truly believe that, the people that want to work with you are the people that are meant to work with you.
Did you think of it long term when you first got in, or did you just pretty much maybe have a 60, 90-day vision?
I'm a dreamer, so I look at the big picture all the time, but then you have to break it down into your 60, 90-day plan and make it practical because, you can go, well, I'm going to be, the biggest and best realtor. I'm going to be,
I can climb the highest mountain.
I can climb the highest mountain. I'm going to be in the top, 10% of the MLS. Of course I wanted that. That was on my goal list when I first started.
Right.
But you have to have a practical plan of how you're going to get there.
Right.
And so you do have to have a 60, 90-day plan and break it down into baby steps.
And the baby things. You got to take that first step.
You do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Marketing wise, you tipped a little bit on some of the things you're doing. I think one of the most underutilized tools, whether in any sales business, I know it is in the mortgage business, it's underutilized. I imagine it's very underutilized from the real estate agent standpoint, is the CRM, because it can do so many things. It's wonderful technology. It can do so many different things that everyone all of a sudden gets analysis paralysis. Are you doing anything from that, like a newsletter, anything like that you're regularly, just have the thing on auto drive and kicking out?
I do. I have 2 email newsletters that I send. One is a market update, and one is just things that are going on in the local community. And then I also have a printed newsletter for the people that like, to hold on to something, which, we don't get very often in the mail anymore. So I'm a firm believer that it's nice to get, something nice and pretty in the mail instead of a bill. And so I like to send, regular mail to people too. So it's a combination of all those things.
Right.
And then, just keeping in touch with them, sending them texts to follow up. But again, I use kind of all of those marketing channels.
Screen going up. We talked about the buyer's presentation, but the listing presentation has changed as well now. What were you doing before? What are you doing now after August 17th as far as that listing presentation? Because I would imagine every top producing agent involved in their business wants things to go smoothly. And I would imagine, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I would imagine you're encouraging your sellers that they need to be putting in a budget for the buyer broker compensation. How has that conversation changed for you?
The conversation hasn't changed a whole lot. That was something that we always discussed. There's just more conversation as far as the changes in the industry and what that looks like. People definitely have more questions. But again, it's just so important for us to clearly communicate what's going on in the industry, what's changed, how that affects them. So there's just more conversation around that. Not necessarily that we're changing it. I think those of us who were already explaining to the sellers the importance of compensating a buyer's broker, that's how you're getting your buyer, the new homeowner for your home. So you've got to incentivize them.
Yeah.
And so that is still a very, very important piece of what we're doing.
I was listening to something, actually I was over at Landmark where they were having a mastermind or talk about the buyer broker agreement. I've been going over there, one, so I could learn what's going on and obviously make the show and ask better questions, because it's obviously being a hot topic in our industry and everyone's dealing with this right now. The point that one of the agents made, which I think is vital, is that the seller in their mind has a perceived number that they want to walk away with.
Correct.
Do you try to go after that right away? Find out what that is, because it makes that explanation of backing out the buyer broker commission and yet still getting them their net number or close to their net number is the best plan. Do you try to find that out right away? Because I would imagine, because not everyone's a top 10% in the MLS, that a lot of people are not actually going right to that and finding, hey, what is it that you want to walk away with? Tell us that, and then let's work back and see if this matches what we can sell your home for, compensate everybody so they're incentivized to bring great buyers to us, and maybe get in a situation where we get multiple offers and actually get more than what we wanted because we're putting that great incentive out there.
I wouldn't say that that's what I lead with. That's still a very, very important part of the conversation. But when I'm first sitting down with a seller and talking to them, I'm automatically going into just the value add that I bring. I want them to feel so confident in my abilities in helping get their home sold that they then are confident that they're going to walk away with the amount that they want to make.
Oh, and then when you go and say, hey, I advise this is what we do, they're like, yes. Because you already sold them on all the value you're bringing to the table.
They're not just then thinking about numbers. They're thinking about how we're going to get to those numbers.
Right. On the listing side, working with a seller, you've seen listings, from people taking their photos with their cell phone and posting them up. I'm big on, I think when you're a listing agent, that's your brand out there. People may be looking at this years from now because the internet's holding those photos up. Right. You don't know who is looking and evaluating this, or the fact that you could say, hey, look how I presented this last home. I could do this with your home. What are some of the vital, most important things that when you're going into a listing that are must do's, and then obviously you're expressing to this seller that, hey, this is what I'm going to do for you?
Just putting your best foot forward. Like you said, you're doing a disservice if you're only putting pictures taken from your cell phone on the internet. And I've seen that happen. And I've had some people that have terminated with another agent and have come to me, and that was because all they did was, take pictures on their phone and put a sign in the yard. There was no marketing plan. There was no strategy to get the home sold. So a perfect example, I had one this year that was on the market almost 6 months and then expired. And they came to me and said, what are you going to do different? And
so they were working with another agent for 6 months?
They were.
Okay.
In the house. And so we went in and we looked at the house and said, okay, what can we do different? There was some wallpaper. So we took down the old wallpaper and painted it neutral. We added some plants to the front, and just these simple little touches to make sure that it presented itself really, really well in the photos. Went in and did some staging. It didn't have that before, and then came in and had professional photographers take the photos, and we got it under contract within 3 days.
Wow.
So
isn't it amazing?
It's the little things. It's the little things. It doesn't have to be something big.
And for, maybe the staging had some cost to it, but the fact you sold it in 3 days and you could take the staging out pretty quickly, that cost went down considerably. It is some of those things. And it's having that frank conversation with the seller. In this case, it was kind of nice that nice sort of that they had a semi-bad experience because the agent wasn't doing the things they should be doing as a professional. I mean, being in this business, if someone said, hey, I got these 2 agents and this one's telling me they think I should do this and stage and, clean up the plants in the front yard and get rid of the wallpaper and paint. And this one over here says they're going to save me a lot of money and they're going to put some photos from their cell phone up. I mean, who would you choose?
Right.
It kind of mind boggles me sometimes. Well, one, we know there's agents out there that are doing this. That's obvious. I don't know whether it's laziness or they think everything comes down to how much something costs. And to me, if you're down to how much something costs, real estate is probably not the business you should necessarily be in. In this case. But their agent, and who's leading them? What brokerage are coming out to? So I want to go back just to swing full circle. Well, we know Kim. deeply involved in this business.
Right.
She's on the board at NEFAR, goes around SPAR, obviously does our RE bar camp. She is fully involved in it. And I imagine that culture, that mindset that she has spills over into your brokerage, which your original thing was the culture. And if someone was doing photos with their cell phone in her brokerage, I think they'd be in her office having a conversation. Yeah.
Well, it's so important, and that's one thing that Kim has, really passed on to us is just, again, putting your best foot forward and showing your clients that you are going to give them more in value than you receive in payment. That's from the Go Giver book, by the way. But that is so important, and that needs to be your goal, is that you're giving people more than what you're receiving, and that they feel like that at the end of the transaction, that they got more than they could ever pay you.
Right.
And is what we strive for, is just to be not just a good agent, but an excellent agent, and that people walk away happy, and they're happy to refer you and to share your information.
What do you think are 3 things that all agents need to be doing today in this current market? It's different than when you first started. Actually, you were kind of catching the tail end, right? You missed all of 2020, right? You should have got in the business a little earlier. But but what do you think are 3 things that any agent right now listening, if you're not doing it, they need to learn how to do it or whatever, get some coaching on it, get some advisory. But what are you think are 3 staples right now that all agents should be doing in this current market conditions that we have?
I think the biggest thing is just to always to continue taking classes, continue staying on top of what's happening in the industry and in the market. We've never arrived. And if you talk to any agent that's been doing this 20 years and 30 years, they'll tell you the same thing, that this industry is always changing. You've never arrived. You're always learning. You're always growing. And I think you just have to have that growth mindset, and you have to be willing to adapt at any time.
Well, we got two new things, in the last conversion. Again, new contracts.
Right.
So you got to learn that. So you should be taking that multiple times. And then the buyer broker agreement, you probably want to go to multiple classes on that, or continue. I would continue doing it. I would go to a dozen different and listen to different people talk about it and how they're presenting it, and then take those 12 ideas with your idea and mold it into yours.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've taken classes on the buyer broker agreement probably 10 times already.
Yeah.
And you get a new little nugget and a new little piece each time. And so again, I think the most important thing. I think the second thing is to stay super involved, because Kim is a great example, and she's inspired me so much. She has always been super involved, not just, in our office, but at the local association level. And my career totally changed once I really started getting involved with the association, with NEFAR. So my second year in real estate, I did the NEFAR Leadership Academy. And after I went through the Leadership Academy, I applied and interviewed, and I'm also on the board of directors at NEFAR. And there's so much to learn and to be a part of. And that was the really big eye-opener for me, was Leadership Academy, and just seeing how much there is to learn, how many opportunities there are for us to advocate for our clients. We get to go to Tallahassee to Great American Realtor Days and learn about the different policies that are out there and affect housing. We get to advocate, and we get to talk to the representatives directly when we go to Tallahassee. That was the coolest thing ever, to know that we can actually be a part of making a change here in our state. And so now, being on the board of directors at NEFAR, most of us get automatically allotted to a board of directors position on Florida Realtors also. And there have been some really cool things that we've had the opportunity to vote on there at the state level too.
How has that just expanded your horizon of real estate from a higher level? I mean, being exposed to some of these things, like, wow, I didn't realize this was actually going on.
Right. It's changed everything. It makes you feel so much more vested, because you're part of the big picture. It's not just about selling this house and making a commission. It's about being a part of the big picture and really seeing change happen. We've seen so many things change over the last couple of years with Hometown Heroes. We got to Tallahassee and talk about that before that was offered to people here in the state of Florida. And that's been huge for allowing people to buy their first home. Condo reform. There, have been so many big things happening.
That is a big subject.
And we've been able to talk and be a part of those discussions and be a part of those changes to protect our clients. And so just being able to share that with our clients and to know that really I'm vested in making this better for everybody.
Vested in the confidence now, because you can actually have conversations with people on an educated level. Say, hey, you're buying in Florida. These are the things that are going on in real estate in Florida. So I'm going to guide you to make a wiser choice because, these condo reforms are going on, or the situation with this condo is not so bad. They're working on this situation's going on in Tallahassee, and dull it down a little bit or whatever, and speak from a position of knowledge because you were there. And you're involved. Yeah, good one. That was really good. That would be a good reel. Just number 2, you going off on it for not only advertising for NEFAR or Florida Realtors, for people to get involved.
Right.
I've expressed to you what I'm trying to work with Florida Realtors right now. I think there's such a need for people to understand what, especially with the National Association, can't call it NAR. Aunt Stroud said I can't call it NAR. You have to call it National Association of Realtors, what they've been going through. And obviously they feel, there could be more lawsuits coming and so forth. Well, you got to get involved so you're getting this information firsthand. Versus, which I think, unfortunately, being in some of these masterminds lately, people are getting information like third and fourth hand.
Right.
And it's not right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the game of telephone.
Yeah, exactly.
The more you repeat it, the more it's going to get misconstrued.
Yeah.
So it's better to learn right from the source. But I would say the third most important thing is don't get distracted. Just stay in your lane. Stay focused on taking care of your people. If you are fully committed to taking care of each and every client and to handle any objection or problem or challenge that comes, and you're willing to do whatever it takes, the rest is going to come. Learning these new agreements and negotiating compensation and adding these extra layers of discussions and negotiations that we have to have when we're negotiating a contract will be just fine as long as you are committed to taking care of each and every customer.
Yep. I often say in discussion, focus on the client in front of you. Yes, you need to prospect. There's no doubt every day you should be doing whatever you're doing from a prospecting standpoint. But the also thing is spending the extra minutes, spending the extra time. Maybe you need to hire an assistant or transaction coordinator so you can spend the real face-to-face time, because it's that client that right there is your next billboard.
Exactly.
And you're putting it in the ground, and hopefully they're going to spin you off 3 or 4 referrals in the next 4 years. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm at the end of my questions. Great information. Is there anything you like to add? Something, did we not talk about something maybe that I don't know about, or just maybe we skipped over in somewhere that you want to express? Why the mics are hot?
I think we covered it all.
Yeah, it was a good show.
There was great.
Some really good information. I really liked, actually, I should have asked the 3 things agents do, because those right there could be 3 individual reels there. That was really good. Awesome. Really good. Awesome. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Those still listening, please like and subscribe. If you're listening to Apple or Spotify or wherever you're listening from, please leave a review. I'd appreciate that. And you have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
This may be it for today's episode of Real Estate Excellence, but we both know your pursuit of excellence doesn't stop here. To connect with the best of the best and really take your skills to the next level, join our community by visiting TracyHayesPodcast.com, where you'll meet more like-minded individuals looking to expand their inner circle and their personal experience. That's available at TracyHayesPodcast.com.